Hi, my name is Sydney McMurray, and my project is on the science of sourdough. I'd like to start off with a little bit about myself. My name is Sydney McMurray. I'm a senior at Seneca Valley. This is my fourth year in Science Honor Society and fourth year serving on the executive board. In the future, I plan to attend Penn State University on the main campus. I'm pursuing food science, and my hobbies include baking, cooking, and playing soccer. This project was more of a research project than anything else. So the topics covered will start with the background, so a little bit about the history of sourdough, why I started doing this project in the first place. The second part will be about creating a starter and what a starter is. And the third topic will be the actual process of bread making. So for a little bit of background about why I decided to do this project, over the past year, because of the pandemic, a lot of people have been doing a lot more baking, including sourdough and bread making. It's super popular because of how easy it seems to be. In this presentation, we'll take a little bit more of a look at the biological and the microbial interactions that create sourdough bread. So what really is sourdough? Sourdough is a type of bread that's created from a starter. Starters are created from fermented flour and water that's left to sit over a period of days, weeks, months. Some starters are even years old. You can trace some sourdoughs back to California, but not all of them started there. They often turn into airy, aromatic loaves of bread that are really soft but have a nice tangy flavor. So there's a few key players in the creation of sourdough. So we'll start with the starter, starts as just flour and water. Flour contains gluten, which later, when it's hydrated with the water, turns into gluten. Gluten is found in all breads. It gives it its shape and texture. It also allows for air bubbles to be created in the bread. So a lot of people wonder how you can make a loaf of bread when you don't add yeast, which is a typical leavening agent. A lot of the yeast that is in sourdough comes from the flour. Flour can contain wild yeast. It also often comes from the environment, like the air around it, where natural yeast can get in there and start reproducing. Water just hydrates the mixture and allows for gluten to form and for the live microbials to flourish. So to talk a little bit more about the yeast, yeast is a leavening agent. It is a type of fungus. It comes in the flour that you would find at the store, but it also comes from the air, which is a much more likely source in this case. It is very resistant to high acidity environments. It also consumes glucose, which is a type of sugar, and then produces alcohol and CO2. The third and final important player in sourdough is bacteria. The bacteria present in sourdough starters creates lactic acid. This acid creates an environment that kills off unwanted organisms such as mold and other harmful bacteria. Often this bacteria is Lactobacillus sanfrancensis, which is a bit of a mouthful to say. But this brings us back to California, where people believed that sourdough had started. They thought that it only came from the San Francisco area, but more recently we've discovered that this bacteria is found all around the world. There are also lots of other bacteria that often produce lactic acid. They are also lactobacillus, but they're not all the same bacteria. So now that we have a little bit more of a foundation about what a starter is, I'm going to start talking about my own starter. I made one using bread flour, which just contains more gluten and often creates a thicker, more stretchy dough. After 5 days of feeding or so, a dark brownish purple film started to appear on the rim and on the top of my starter. It turned into a liquid later. I was really unsure of what it was, so I decided it'd be much safer to get a starter from another source to make my actual sourdough. I later discovered that this was just an excess of alcohol, which is given off by wild yeast. It wouldn't have harmed the starter at all. I would have just had to mix it in. With my starter all ready to go, I created my own loaf of sourdough bread. All you have to add is more flour, water, a little bit of salt, and the starter. After multiple times of proofing, it then gets put in a Dutch oven, which is often made of cast iron, and into the oven. Baking it in the Dutch oven allows for steam to be trapped inside the bread and also keeps the crust from getting stiff and splitting later. Then I baked it uncovered for 40 minutes to allow that dry crust to form on the outside to give it that signature crunch, and then it was all done.
Thank you so much for watching my presentation. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below this video. Thank you.